Starlight prevented the rain boom in 7 different ways, resulting in 7 alternate timelines. If you include ours, this adventure took place over the course of 8 timelines, right? Well, what if I told you there was a 9th, and it's even creepier than all the others? When Starlight finally let the rain boom happen, she, Twilight, and Spike were returned to the present of the main timeline. Or were they? The world they returned to seems like the one they left, but what if it's not? The way I've been interpreting time travel suggests these might be entirely different worlds. Here's what I mean. Starlight may not have intentionally changed anything this time, but just being there was already a change. It's part of this timeline now that the rain boom had 3 extra spectators that weren't originally there. This may be a small change, but it's a change nonetheless. These can't be the same timeline if they have different histories. Once they had altered the past just by being there, they couldn't return to the present of a timeline in which they weren't there. They could only ever continue forward into different timelines, even if everything else was exactly the same. So what does this mean for Twilight, Starlight, and Spike? Nothing. As far as they can tell, life goes on as usual, but this isn't about them. It's about the world they unknowingly left behind. The forgotten first timeline. This is the one we started out in. The one where we met the main 6, saw them take on the villains and discover their destinies. But since we followed Twilight into that alternate timeline, all of that was left behind, switched out for a nearly identical copy, abandoned. If this is true, we haven't seen anything in the original timeline past the moment Starlight cast the spell. On the flip side, once that spell was cast, no one in the original timeline would ever hear from Twilight, Starlight, or Spike again. It's chilling to think about that somewhere out there, that timeline goes on without them, without us. What might that world even look like? Well, it wouldn't take long for the rest of the main 6 to realize Twilight was nowhere to be found, and the throne room would show no signs of what went down there. And since Spike is the only other person Twilight told about seeing Starlight, the rest of the main 6 wouldn't even be able to piece together what happened. No closure whatsoever. They could start searches, but ultimately they'd just have to learn to live without Twilight or Spike. Celestia would have to look for a new replacement from scratch. But that would be the least of Equestria's worries. The first major departure from our timeline would occur at the crystalling. Flurry would still be born, and she'd probably still break the crystal heart. But this time, without Twilight to guide Starlight into reuniting with Sunburst, winter would consume the Crystal Empire. Who knows how this would affect the rest of Equestria? But Equestria will have its own problems. If Chrysalis still tried her second invasion attempt, Starlight wouldn't be there to stand in her way. Thorax wouldn't have come to the Crystal Empire and befriended Spike, and Trixie wouldn't have grown close to Starlight. Without that group of misfits, nothing would hold Chrysalis back from victory. So yeah, the original timeline might just be another Chrysalis timeline now. I don't think the Pony of Shadows would come into play, since Sunburst would have no reason to visit Ponyville and buy the barrel that had Starswirl's journal. Stygian and the Pillars would stay in limbo. Cozy Glow, on the other hoof, may still try to wreak havoc. Without the School of Friendship, her schemes would have looked much different, but she may still have pen-palled Tyrek and gathered enough artifacts to drain Equestria's magic. Whatever happens, this world would quickly become unrecognizable. And all because Twilight, Starlight, and Spike vanished from that timeline to ours. Pretty depressing, I know, but if it makes you feel better, I could be totally wrong. Time travel might work differently. For example, the 2 rain boom timelines may have merged back together since there was no real variance after that single moment. There's no reason to think they did, but there's also no reason to think they didn't. It really just depends on how time travel works, which we may never know. Unless... Nameless?
What is it?
If you go back in time and then return without changing anything, does it still branch off into its own timeline?
So you want to learn the secrets of time itself now, huh? Do I look like a search engine to you? Oh, I have a time travel question. Why don't I just nameless it? Some things are better left unknown, kid. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do.
I guess we'll never know then, but what do you think? Am I right about the two Rainboom timelines? If so, what's the original timeline like now? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. If you want to support this channel financially, check out my perks at patreon.com/sawtoothwaves, and thank you so much to everyone who already has, especially my Alicorn tier patrons. The Nameless One, Equinox3141, Gilded Page, Cyanax, Princess Starglow, Allison H, Grimeclips, and the winner of this week's Alicorn raffle, Petrolhead02. Congrats, and thanks again for everyone's support. Y'all help make this channel possible. I'm Sawtooth Waves signing out until Friday after next. Brohoo.